Hey everyone, BT here. David and I are going inside my three friends, and we're going to get to the bottom of understanding what confidants, constituents, and comrades and the role that they play in your life. This one is oftentimes can be pretty triggering. I hope it's not for you. It's very powerful when you know who these three people are in your life and what you can do to move into achieving your dreams. Come inside and check it out. Hey everyone, this is BT and welcome to Inside the Episode. Today, David and I are talking about the episode, My Three Friends. And I know we've got more than three friends here, but this episode, I'm going to start off by saying that when you do this teaching, it always confuses me. So I'm glad we're able to go inside a little bit, just because I feel like sometimes the three people that we're going to talk about here in a moment, the confidants, the constituents, and the comrades, I know I've had them in my life, but I have a hard time pinpointing who those people are. And I think that's why this episode is crucial to go back and listen to it several times, because you want to be able to know who those people are in your life. So it's based around how we evaluate relationships in our life, which I think is really important. You said that from the onset. And then basically taking a look at the character of those individuals that'll be in your life. So let's start with just a softball question. What is it about character and the character of people that makes it so important in our lives to make sure we're making the right decisions on who these people are?
That is a great that is a great question. And you know, here's the thing. I think an individual, and I was actually kind of thinking about this morning, because we have the ability to change our attitude. I can show up to any situation being anybody I want to be, right? And if you don't know me, you just take it at face value. Here's who this person is. They're nice, they're an asshole, they're gracious, they're vindictive, like whatever it is that you're having an experience of in the moment. That doesn't tell you what my character is, though. You know, it doesn't let you know what are my secret motivations. Why am I in this relationship? What is it that I'm trying to get from you? Or what is it that I'm trying to help with, or how am I trying to contribute? You don't know anything about me, really. And I always thought that it was fascinating. Me, myself, and everybody that I grew up with never had any kind of instruction on how do you tell the character of a friend, somebody that you're going to meet in life. How do you know what that is? What do you do with it when you see a character change? So basically, it's like, this is a nice person. We used to hear that. Or this person's a jerk. You know, would hear that. But nobody ever said, listen, you're going to have different relationships in your life. And in those relationships, it's going to be important for you to understand the character of those individuals. Even if it's from the premise of like, what is the reason this person wants to be in relationship to you, in whatever reason. But nobody did that. So if we understand that, we can understand what, why, and how do we want this person in a relationship. How much do I want to share with them? How much can I trust this person? Can I put this person in charge of certain things that are important in my life, that I need to be able to trust them? Also, what can I share of myself with this individual? You know, when we in the lesson, we're talking about confidants, and we're saying this is a person who's really for you, right? They love you. There's an unconditional love. So you would share things with a person like that you wouldn't necessarily share with somebody else. Somebody who has a different character, you're not going to share your dream with them. You're not going to share sensitive information with them, because it gives them the ability to do great damage if they're of the character that they could do, or they would want to do great damage. So there's a lot of reasons for us to want to know the character of an individual, from like I'm looking for a spouse, or I'm looking for a friend, or I'm looking for a business partner, or I'm looking for people to build a team within the work that I'm doing in a business. I need to know the individual characters of these people, because it tells me about them, how they approach life, and what they're going to do.
Yeah, and I would assume that the confidants and constituents can, at times, you may think you have in this person a confidant, but it turns out that maybe they were confidant in disguise and they're actually a constituent. So it's not like, okay, this is a confidant, they're a confidant for life. That can maybe morph over time. And I'm thinking about the people who listen to these podcasts and they themselves are feeling like, maybe I have someone in my life who I believe to be a confidant, but they're actually a constituent. And in my own life, I think growth and awareness really change how you look at people. So I'm glad that you open up character there. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
It's just really interesting. I don't know.
When I first heard this lesson, because I didn't create this, right? This was a teaching that I heard from somebody else. And when I heard it, number one was that it made me understand at a different level why so many things went wrong with people in my life that where it did go wrong. It also helped me understand where a lot of things went right with people. And it gave me an awareness of like, something? I have a tendency to want to make somebody a confidant, and they're really a constituent, right?
Sure.
And it's kind of like, because I'm a nice person and I'm empathetic with people and I'm compassionate, I could very easily overshare with someone or move into a place where there's not as many boundaries. And I really shouldn't be doing that because that's not the role the person's playing in my life.
Right.
But see, it causes problems when you do that and then the person behaves as who they really are. You just didn't see them that way.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, before we get too far into this, let's go through those three people who come into our lives. You did a great job of this in the episode itself, but I want to go ahead and reiterate them for people that are listening now. So we'll start with confidants.
Sure.
They are for you and you're for them. You love them unconditionally. They're in the relationship for the long haul, and if you're lucky, you'll have like 2 or 3 of these people in your entire lifetime. Whatever you're setting out to do, you won't be able to achieve it until you meet this person. And I think that is a very interesting distinction. So I want to say that again. Whatever you're setting out to do, you won't be able to achieve it until you meet this person. Can you talk more about that and why it's so vital to success?
Yes. So before I learned this, the way that I understood kind of the question that you're asking me was this. Everybody has a purpose, right? But there are certain people whose purposes are connected. And you need those people. They need you. You're not going to fulfill your purpose to the greatness that it can be fulfilled until you meet this person. It doesn't mean that you won't do good things or whatever, but to take it really to the next level, you need to have this other person in your life. I remember Proctor talking to me one time about Earl Nightingale, because Bob was vice president of sales for Nightingale Conant way back in the day, and Earl was a mentor of his. Now, back in the day, everybody knew who Earl was because he was on the radio and he was celebrity, so to speak. Nobody knew who Lloyd Conant was, but Lloyd was the business mind behind what Earl did. And Nightingale Conant would have never become the company that it became without Lloyd and Earl. So Earl was the talent. Lloyd was the business brain behind the talent that allowed those two things to become, the largest self-improvement company in the world at one time, right? And I remember Bob teaching me this, and he was like, everybody has to have this person, and that person is out there. And then I learned that when you grow into the person that you need to grow into, that's when you'll meet this person. It's like it is, I wouldn't say divine timing, but it is the timing in which it makes sense for those two people to actually come together. You'll attract that person at the right time. It's not like you can go out and start looking for them. It's like you put an ad in the Sunday paper.
Sure.
I'm looking for my
desperately
confidant.
Seeking confidant.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So the idea that you only have a couple of these people is primarily because your life purpose is entangled with their life purpose to some degree. And we see, like I mentioned, like Lennon and McCartney and Richards and Jagger, and you can just go on with great partnerships that we see, very upfront in the world because the two people make each one better, significantly better, because they're actually together.
Yeah, and I love that you brought in like some of those duos, those dynamic duos
Yeah.
and things. And when you were talking
Batman and Robin.
Yeah, totally. When you were talking about those things for a moment, it made me think of the relationship between Elton John and Bernie Taupin, right? Because you wouldn't have Elton John, this masterful showman, without the brilliant lyrics that Bernie Taupin was putting in behind the scenes. It's like you see the work that put in, but they wouldn't had achieved greatness, but you don't really know much about Bernie unless you've seen the documentaries or read the books.
Right.
You wouldn't even know that behind the scenes person exists. It's all just Elton John. So I love that you said that.
Most people today don't know Bernie Taupin. If you told them that Elton didn't write those lyrics, they wouldn't believe you, because it's not something that has to be put out there in their relationship. That's not what's important. Right? They know what's important, and they keep that relationship to Bernie doesn't want to be out in front, right? Elton's the showman. That's why he's the showman.
Yeah, it's just interesting. All these people we mentioned. I mean, you did mention JFK and Jackie as well, but most of them are from the music world. Those dynamic duos come together and they just create magic. But without the other person wouldn't have been as great. It's divine timing, maybe, but it doesn't have to be. It's just you'll have very few people that are confidants in your life, which I think is great. So next we'll move to constituents. So constituents, they are for what you're for.
Yes.
You have similar interests that allow each one of you to help fulfill what you want in life. But when that commonality or the interest shifts, that person sort of just fades away and disappears. Never think for a moment, you said this brilliantly, that they are for you, even though it may seem like that when they say so.
Right.
These are like the team members, the players that are surrounding you. They're constituents, but they're for what you're for, not for you.
Right.
So when we look at them, you said there'll be many of these people in your life. They come in for a season and a reason, right? And there's a skill involved, I believe, and I'm hoping you can help me with this, to differentiate between the confidant and the constituent. Is that important to know in the moment? Because like we talked about at the top of this, sometimes they shift. You don't really know until you're in it. So is there like a skill I should be looking out for to determine if this person is a true confidant or if they're just one of the many constituents who will come into my life?
Yeah, and this is what I think. It's a really interesting question, because I'm sure that you could break this down into an evaluative process. But I also think that when you're talking about a confidant, I think it's like you just know.
You'll know
You know it.
It's like a tuning fork that goes off in your body.
You absolutely know it. Most of the people that are going to be in our life are going to be the constituent level, right? And it doesn't mean you can't be great friends. I mean, you could be friends for a lifetime. You could be friends for 20 or 30 years. You could do all kinds of things together. But there's that one little thing where they would be like, if this happened, I'd be out, right? The confidant wouldn't be like that. Like if you were in jail, and you became a crack baby and you're in jail, they'd be there for you.
Right.
They wouldn't ask questions. They might read you the riot act on the way home, but they're going to be there for you no matter what. And that's a different level. And because when I think about all the different people that I have studied, when I learned this, I was like, that makes sense of why these two people were together. They didn't always get along the greatest either, which says a lot about the difference between the confidant and the constituent, right? Here's a real famous one in the rock industry. You have Jimmy Page and Robert Plant, right? Neither one of them has had the success without the other that they had together. And the thing that kills Robert is that he knows that he will never be that greatness without Jimmy, and it so bothers him that he has to go and do it anyway, do it on his own, and he'll never have the same level that he had before. So it drives a wedge. But even he will say that this person is his spiritual musical brother in life, and it brought something to the table that he has not ever found anywhere else. That it was at that level, but there's also a degree of we don't necessarily get along with each other
Yeah.
all that much.
Yeah, I mean, and to bring, the sports world into it, it was like Shaq and Kobe. I mean, when
Totally.
they were together, they were at each other's throats. But they drove each other to be great. And then when, Shaq went to Miami and he won a championship there, Kobe, it willed him to win without Shaq, and he ended up winning championships down the
Right.
road. But it was like neither one of them could, I mean, they did break away and they did end up having a collective, but if they would have stayed together, if they could have just learned to, be together on that team, they probably would have won 8 or 9 or 10 more. Who knows, right? But it's just interesting to see that division that happens and think I can go out and do this on my own when the true magic lies in sort of that dysfunction.
Yes. Well, it's interesting you bring that up because you and I were big fans of the documentary about the last season of the Bulls.
Yes,
and
Last
Jordan
Dance.
talked about you would not see me up here if it wasn't for Pippen.
True.
Wherever you see me, that Scotty's right there
Yes.
also. And they did figure out how to actually do that dance together, so to speak, in order to bring out that great. And I'm sure, you know so much more about sports than I do, but I'm sure, I mean, we just did the thing on Tiger Woods, Tiger and his father.
Right,
Look
exactly.
what happened after Dad died.
Yeah.
Right? So this confident thing is huge, but most people just don't know it.
Yeah, for sure. And with constituents, it's really interesting, and I think of, mega celebrities who have like an entourage that follows them around, just a bunch of toadies and yes men that are telling them how great they are. But if the second something goes south, second, something bad happens, negative press, they start to distance themselves. And that's when you find out, the phrase is you find out who your true friends are. Your confidants will be with you no matter what, thick and thin. Your constituents will fall off in a second if things start to sour or turn south and make them look negative.
Right.
It's just really, really interesting. Right. Yeah. And then finally we get to comrades. Comrades are not for you and they're not for what you're for. They're against what you're against. The relationship doesn't have to be, any dislike or disharmony there. It can be full of energy and excitement, like you said, but make no mistake, they are against what you're against, and they're there to help you do battle with something in your life. Can you talk more about that battle and maybe give an example of what a comrade would look like?
Sure. I think everybody in life has great battles that they're going to fight. You don't even have, it's very easy to say this if you're doing something with great significance, like you're building this major business or you're out there trying to change the world or whatever. But even the average person, is going to have great battles in their life. They may have a kid or a spouse with cancer, or an accident happens, or they're getting sued, or something blows up in the family. There's all kinds of stories about people that, they ended up battling their city or their state or some local government change in whatever. Then you hear about the person that came in to help them fight that battle. And maybe it was an attorney, or it was a political figure, or it was a great doctor, or whatever it might have been. These are people that have an interest in overcoming a specific set of things in the world, and they've specialized their life on battling these things. It could be the defense attorney, right? It could be the prosecutor. Their job is to find the people that need that service to help them battle the great battle that's actually going to be in their life. You don't even know you need this person until you're in some kind of a battle. When you're in one of those life battles or one of those health challenges or what, it doesn't matter what the challenge is. What it matters is that every person is going to have these challenges throughout their life, and you need the great warrior to come in to help you actually move through it. So this person is against what you're against, and they're going to come in and they're going to help you fight the good fight so that you can come out on the other side of it.
Yeah, and I think for me, just to bring it into my own life, I think that I've had a lot of comrades in my life, especially when I was a teacher. And the battle wasn't necessarily against a certain thing. It was more against the establishment. Like as a teacher, you're complaining about the teachers union because your wage is low. You're complaining about the principal who's making you come in on a Saturday to do something. So you're against that, and people rally to the cause. I think I get hung up on the word battle a little bit, but I felt like they weren't really, I guess maybe they could be considered constituents or they could be comrades. I guess this is where I get so stuck in this lesson. But I feel like when we were rallying to improve the working relationship within the union and rising up and making sure we were spoken for, there were a bunch of comrades. But as soon as I left teaching, it just went away. I didn't have that commonality anymore. The interest shifted.
Yes, the union would be a great example of that,
Sure.
right? Because they're against unfair treatment of an employee,
Yes.
right? So no matter where you go, whether it's a truck drivers union or it is the food unions or whatever, the airline unions, it is you're against as an individual, as an employee of some sort. You want fair treatment, so you're against unfair treatment, unfair wages. And the union is set up to demand that you're treated fair and that you get fair and that the power doesn't become out of balance. But you're right. Then when you leave, if you leave the union, the relationship's over. There's nothing. There's nothing there.
Yeah, and you find out really quickly you don't have a lot in common, especially when you're on a growth journey like Steph and I went through. We found out like our friends just sort of just faded away. There wasn't any ill will. It's just, and really what was interesting about that is that it triggered me to the place where I felt, oh, I'm better than someone and I can't be better than someone because I should be the same as someone. And it really was interesting as that unfolded. So, confidants, constituents, comrades, is there can you write on a sheet of paper those 3 columns and start listing people, or is that...
I think you could.
Is it that important, I guess?
Yes, I think it's very important, but I think it's important from looking at it almost from the reverse. You don't want to put somebody in one of these columns that doesn't belong there. And really, the two that cause the most problems are confidants and constituents.
Sure.
When a person is making someone a confidant that is not a confidant, that's where I see the biggest problems, right? Because they're sharing things with that person that they shouldn't be sharing, and they're expecting things that they shouldn't expect. It's also the one where you see it on the opposite side. Very often, the constituent does not understand that they're a constituent. They may even think they're a confidant until something goes wrong. And I think I mentioned in the episode, marriages is where we see that very often. We also see it in business. Like you see 2 people in partnership, they have a difference of opinion on something, and then the relationship is over. What they find out was that the relationship was based on whatever that thing was and how it brought some kind of significance to the relationship itself.
Yeah, they weren't a confidant to begin with. They were a
They were
constituent,
not.
but they thought they were confidants.
Right.
And you've said multiple times in many teachings that be very careful who you share your dream with.
That's correct.
You really believe that, especially your family. You'd love to think that your family are confidants, but in all actuality, looking through my family, they're more constituents, I would say. They're for what I'm for, but I don't tell them every little thing, especially when I'm going through a growth journey. It's just really fascinating.
I think, when you look at it, and here's another place, marriages. So whenever I teach this, I'm always very aware, and the team's very aware, that people in the audience are going to be highly triggered by this. Some people are going to be really triggered because all of a sudden, you may all of a sudden have the realization that your spouse is not a confidant, but a constituent. And now it's like, well, what the hell does that mean, right? It in this moment, it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing, right? People get married for all different kinds of reasons, but take this into consideration for a second. When we get married, we have different values as to what is the covenant of marriage, right? Many people look at it and say it really needs to be a lifetime commitment, regardless. That means that if both people hold that value, that they would literally be coming from the place where it should be a confidant, right? Because it means that no matter what happens in this marriage, we're in it to death, okay? Many people say it, but they don't do it. And then when something goes wrong in the marriage, which it's going to happen, they're looking for the exit door. But see, that's when you find out you weren't married to a confidant, you were married to a constituent. And it also means that the other person didn't really know who they were to begin with. Because if they took the same vow and they said, till death do us part, except for, and then they list, here's the things that could go wrong that would, I'm out the back door if this stuff happens. They didn't really know who they were to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the reason I struggle with this lesson from time to time is my linear brain wants to make the confidants the people in our lives that we want to surround ourselves with, and the comrades who we don't. And you said very eloquently in the episode, none of these three people are bad.
No.
My mind wants, I don't know why my mind wants me to put them, these are good people, these are bad people, and have an opposition. It's just the way my mind works. But the truth is these people are in your life and they're not bad. It doesn't have to be a bad situation. So
no. It goes bad when we don't understand it.
Sure.
Because then we intermingle our emotional state with people. We intermingle the position, the authority, the trust, and that stuff gets all really muddled. But, I mean, we've talked about this many times. We don't learn this as kids.
No.
Nobody ever teaches us this stuff when we're children.
Yeah, it's true.
It is, this is a nice person. I mean,
There's
that's
that
kind
nice
of how
word
we define people by, are they nice or are they an asshole?
Sure.
I mean, I'm not trying to be blunt, but it really is that way for so many individuals. So they don't have a deeper knowledge of what is it that makes up this person's character, and how do I evaluate that so I know how far I want to go with this person? What do I want to do with this person? Do I want this person to be in control of the money in my company? Right.
Right.
It really makes up a lot as far as where we make decisions from, I think.
Yeah. Absolutely. And again, go back and listen to this over and over again so you can kind of understand the confidants, constituents, and comrades for sure. As I wind it down here, just one more question. In order for us to move forward in life, we're going to need other people. You said that plainly.
Yes.
And they will fall underneath one of these three categories. Relationships with people who know more than we do are powerful because they give us something to strive for.
Right.
They can be intimate, they can be non-intimate. And this is made for ever more apparent during this recent pandemic. Excuse me. So how have you seen this shift over the course of the last year? Because now we're sort of relying on people, I feel like, more and more, but in a virtual setting. Have you seen a shift in that?
I've seen a shift in many different ways, because with people being locked up in the same household, they're finding out with things within the relationship they didn't necessarily know. I see this deepening some relationships and ending other relationships. It's also, I think, from a one-on-one perspective, I think that there's this idea of, I'm kind of faced with having to get to know myself a little bit better. Do I like what I see or don't I like what I see, right? If I switch this and hold it up as a mirror, right? Am I a confidant to myself or am I a constituent to myself? And I also think, some people would actually be a comrade to their self. You see people that literally go through life where everything's a fucking injustice, and that's all they're doing is battle. They're always looking for what's wrong. They're always looking for the next thing that they need to fight against in their lifetime, and they're literally being a comrade with themselves.
Man, that's interesting. I never even thought to look at myself and ask myself a question. Am I a confidant to myself? Am I a constituent, or am I a comrade? That totally brings a whole other conversation into this thing. So, well, I think this is very powerful, and I'm going to go back and listen again.
Good.
All right. Thanks for coming inside.
You bet.
Hey, everyone. BT here. Yeah. Blows my mind every time we talk about this teaching. When you're talking about confidants, constituents, and comrades, I don't know, just something in my subconscious does not want me to hear it, but David sets me straight. If someone you know could benefit from this episode, please share it with them. Leave us a comment down below, and we'd love to hear more about how these three people show up in your life and what they're doing to push you to the top. We'll see you on the next Successful Mind podcast.